Welcome to Long Live Alternative Parties. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on this podcast like we always do. His name is Jared Young. He's with an organization called The Better Party. He's going to talk to us about what he's been doing to that, his process with making that party an official party, all that he's gone through and his stages of development. It's going to be interesting for us and valuable for us. So welcome to the podcast, Jared.
Thanks for having me.
Jared, we are glad to have you. If we could get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Yeah, so like you said, my name's Jared Young. I live in Missouri. My background is I grew up all over the country, went to Brigham Young for my undergrad, went to Harvard for law school, spent some time living abroad both in Europe and the Middle East, and practiced as an attorney a little bit in D.C. and then moved to the Midwest to switch to business. So I've been a businessman most of my career. I dove into politics in 2022. I was at a point in my career where I had some resources that I hadn't had before, and where I was at kind of a pivot point, and had been concerned for a long time about the direction our country was going, and really just the tone and lack of problem solving in our politics. So I went all in starting in 2022, and I know we can talk more about that, but that's my background. I also have a wife I've been married to for 17 years, and we have 6 children. So that's the biggest focus of my life is
Wow.
my nice family.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of good stuff. Sounds like a great variety of experience. So where in the Middle East did you live?
I lived in Jordan, so Amman, Jordan, about 40 miles east of Jerusalem.
Oh my, Jordan. That's not usually the first place I think when people say about staying in the Middle East. Wow. So what was the most valuable thing about that experience for you?
You know, I was there because my undergrad's in Arabic and Middle Eastern studies. I think the most valuable thing about that, my experience for me was, it was the first time I realized that you can have a problem and a disagreement where both sides of the argument have reasonable, rational arguments that completely contradict each other. So, thinking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's been going on for decades, and I had been studying it for several years before I went to the Middle East. And I spent time while I was there, talking to displaced Palestinians and talking to Israelis, and just realized, okay, they're all reasonable people. Most of them are decent, good people, and they are making sound arguments for their sides. Their sound arguments just add up to different conclusions. And that was kind of, as I was in my early 20s, that was kind of an epiphany for me that, like, okay, there's not necessarily one easy right answer to every problem in the world. And I realized that there are just times when compromise is necessary, and compromise is really the only way forward. And that's carried with me in all of my, legal profession, my business profession. Compromise has been a big part of my life.
Wow. It sounds like BYU and Harvard are very different places. Is that correct?
That's true. BYU is about as conservative as you can come, and Harvard's about as liberal as you can get. So definitely got both ends of the spectrum.
Wow, great. So that puts you in a good position for a political organization because you're seeing things from different points of view.
Yep, for sure.
So you mentioned 2022. Well, what happened and what did you do about it?
So, like I said, I was at a point in my career where I was trying to figure out what to do next. We had just sold the company that I was running, and so had resources available. I was at a point where I could actually take a break from work and still support my family and pursue something that I was passionate about. And I decided that what I wanted to do was try to provide an alternative option to the toxic and just angry and unproductive politics that we'd gotten so used to, especially since 2016. And I decided to run for the U.S. Senate in Missouri. And initially, my intention was just to run as an independent. And I kind of started down that path. And to get on the ballot as an independent in Missouri, you need 10,000 signatures. and started down that path, but then realized that I could get 10,000 signatures to just get myself on the ballot and take this one shot, or in Missouri, I could get 10,000 signatures and form a new political party and open the door for not just me to run in that particular election, but instead open the door for me and many other candidates to run in the 2024 election, but also in future elections. And so it felt like it would be a more meaningful exercise for me and a more meaningful use of those resources to go the party route. And so, so we went ahead and formed a new party. The party was called the Better Party, which was a play on my campaign slogan was "We Can Be Better." And so, the party was kind of tied to the slogan of my campaign. And yeah, so we didn't have a ton of time to recruit other candidates for the 24 cycle because your whole list of candidates had to be submitted at the time you submitted your signatures. So we ended up just having 2 candidates on the ballot in 2024, me for U.S. Senate, and then we had a gentleman in the St. Louis area run for the U.S. Congress. And yeah, ran a campaign, spent a little over $1 million on our combined campaigns, and tried to push hard to get a foothold. There are lots of challenges and lots of lessons learned that we can talk about. Ultimately, we needed 2% to become an official. We needed to get 2% of the vote in my Senate race to become an official established party in Missouri, and we fell short of that goal. So we're kind of regrouping, trying to figure out what our next steps are now.
Okay. So for the $1 million you said was on the campaign, was that through your own contribution? Other people contribute to that as well?
We raised between $200,000 and $300,000, and then I spent about $1 million of my own money.
Oh my! Wow! Okay.
Yeah.
So what were the lessons you learned from that campaign? I'm sorry, cut you off.
I was just gonna say, so we were seriously committed to this, and the outcome was pretty disappointing considering the amount of resources we'd poured into it. But in terms of lessons learned, I've thought a lot about that since November, and I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was it's incredibly hard to get people to take action to change our political situation. Lots and lots of people are disgusted with it and tired of it and discouraged. And, as I'd go around and share my message of, an alternative way, a more positive way and problem solving and compromise, people would be very open to it and be pretty enthusiastic about it. But getting people to actually step up and do something about it, whether that was donate or volunteer or, ultimately vote in the ballot box, it's incredibly hard. I don't think it's just a Missouri thing. I think in general, American voters, in large part, are kind of apathetic and are willing to express anger and express disgust, but struggle to do much more than that. And so that was kind of a discouraging lesson that I learned.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunately a negative one. Okay, so what else did you learn?
On a more positive note, I learned that there is an incredible just appetite and desire for something different. I think people just have no idea how to achieve that something different, and it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. People feel like we have this two-party system and we're stuck with it and there's nothing I can do about it, so thus I won't try to do anything about it. And if people don't do anything about it, then nothing happens. So it becomes this just reinforcing cycle and self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh my. So you mentioned apathy. What do you think is the root cause of that? What contributes to the apathetic state of being for a lot of people?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have a perfect answer. I think some of it might just have to do with the fact that we've gotten too comfortable and we've been so prosperous for so long. And yes, we have our hiccups and, we have our little mini scandals, but in comparison to the rest of the world, it's been pretty smooth sailing in the U.S. for a long time, and I think people haven't been forced to get really involved, and have been able to lead, relatively prosperous, relatively happy lives without having to worry too much about what's going on in the government. And my hope in the 24 election was that things had gotten ugly enough that people would be kind of, prompted to action and wake up because of it. And it appears that wasn't the case in 24. Maybe in 26 or 28 or 30, or I don't know what needs to happen. If I knew the secret, I would have performed better in my election, I guess.
Yeah. You raise an interesting point. I believe in life oftentimes when you have nothing to lose, it seems like it seems a negative thing, yet at the same time it can be a very positive thing, because if you have nothing to lose, then you're willing to take risks that can benefit you positively. So that's why I've seen, you mentioned other countries, I see people who are in worse circumstances, yet they take risks. And then it leads to a better life, and they're more exciting to be around because they're not in this state where they have to fear losing stuff. So they're willing to take risks. So when we get in that state, that's not the only way to get in the state, is not necessarily through hardship. Some people are wired to take risks. So yet hardship can make us risk. So I think you raised a great point about that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thought and a good point.
So the Better Party, what type of platform does it have? What are the main planks of the platform?
So we took the approach of, because we were trying to be an organization that was essentially representing the moderate middle that's been left behind. We feel like the Republican Party represents the extreme right now, and the Democratic Party represents the extreme left. So we were trying to represent that huge chunk in the middle that has much more moderate views than are being displayed in both parties right now. We took the approach that our party was more about an approach and an attitude and less about specific policy prescriptions. So our candidates had to agree to three things. First, they had to agree that they would treat everyone with kindness and respect, especially their political opponents. Second, they had to be willing to consider policy ideas from all over the political spectrum and evaluate ideas based on their merits and not based on where they came from. And third, they had to reject the idea that the ends justify the means, because we feel like that's one of the biggest problems in our politics these days, is that people are so convinced that their cause is so righteous and the other people are so bad that they can justify doing anything, lying, cheating, bending the rules, because their cause is so righteous. And we think that's problematic thinking. That's not the way that our leaders should be acting. If you have to lie, cheat, or steal to get what you're going for, then what you're going for isn't worth getting.
There you go. Good way to put it. It sounds like what you're doing is in line with a trend we're seeing with alternative parties, some of them at least, is instead of having a more ideological bent, they are forming along a set of basic core beliefs, and then people are coming in that way. Like the SAM Party was one example of that. That was one of their main points, was that they didn't want an ideological belief. Instead, they wanted a party that was based on principles, general principles, and then people would come in that way. So it sounds like what you're doing is in line with that trend that we're seeing, that less ideology and more of basis on principles and reform in and of itself.
Yep, that's right. So very similar to what some of the other groups out there are doing. It remains to be seen if kind of a loose collection of principles is enough to motivate people, again, to step up and take action. I haven't seen anyone be wildly successful with it yet.
Yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. So are you thinking about running for office again, or is it something that took a lot out of you so you're not able to do it anytime soon?
I guess I would never say never. I will confess that my Senate run completely exhausted me, and the thought of running for office again anytime soon doesn't sound very appealing to me. Not to mention I spent so much money on the Senate race that I can't self-fund like that again unless I, take some time to make some money again. So for me to run again anytime soon would require some people with financial resources coming to me and saying, hey, we can carry the financial load this time. But certainly I'm still passionate about it and concerned, continue to be concerned about the direction our country's going. Again, I'm not, when I say I'm concerned about the direction our country's going, it's not necessarily a right or a left thing. I just think our national leadership has completely lost the ability to problem solve. And we're facing a lot of complex, difficult challenges that will require smart people sitting down and hashing things out instead of just throwing, bombs at each other.
Yeah, there you go. So do you think you could help in a campaign, maybe like a campaign manager or in some sense like that, or is that still something you're not able to do at this point?
Oh yeah, I would be perfectly happy to help other people run and help them learn from the lessons that I learned and provide resources to people. That's the intention with the Better Party moving forward. It's unclear right now. We're still in discussions with the Secretary of State whether we will get another shot in 2026 to get the Better Party established as an official party in Missouri. But assuming we get that chance, then we will run a slate of candidates under the Better Party, probably focus on a slew of smaller races this time around and try to make a dent that way. Those are the kind of races that you can win just through hustle and sweat as opposed to having needing millions and millions of dollars. So if we're able to do that, then yes, I will be helping on all those campaigns and help recruit candidates and help raise money for a variety of different people that will be running all over the state of Missouri.
That sounds perfect because it's good to run for office. It's also good to support people in other roles. So we need all those positions, and it's good that we want to alternate. It gives you have different perspectives that you can share, and also for the sake of being versatile for the party. So that's good. It sounds like you're in a good position.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly don't want my lessons learned and my experience to be a waste. So I'm happy to be a resource to anyone, anywhere who's trying to accomplish similar things.
So the candidates, are you recruiting candidates that are already in other parties, or are you looking through independents, or how are you recruiting the candidates?
Really, anyone who's willing to subscribe to the principles of the party, I'm open to. There are a variety of people right now who are potential options. You have disenchanted conservatives who feel like the Republican Party has abandoned conservative principles and who have never been comfortable with Donald Trump and kind of that brand of republicanism. You have disenchanted Democrats who feel like that party has kind of gotten lost, and then you have people who have been independent for a long time. So there's a relatively large pool to draw from. The challenge is just finding people who have the grit and determination to do a hard thing and to pound the pavement for a year and run a campaign. Sure.
So when you ran your campaign, you said you self-funded it. Did you? So were you employed by somebody else then, or were you your own boss then?
I was my own boss. I was not working at that time.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. I talked about that with Larry Sharp when he was on the podcast, that it seems like oftentimes a lot of candidates are business owners.
Yeah, unfortunately, it requires such an incredible amount of resources to run and such an incredible amount of time that if you just have a regular full-time 9-to-5 job, it's incredibly difficult, especially if you have a family. It's incredibly difficult to run for political office. And an office like the U.S. Senate is such a gargantuan task that there was no way I could work full-time and and try to tackle that.
Oh, that's good. So you're able to focus on it entirely. That's good.
Yeah.
So since you were mentioning that you have a pool of people in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, is your party into fusion voting? Is that an option in Missouri?
Fusion voting is not an option in Missouri, but I like the concept and would love to see it here. Our state house is thoroughly dominated by Republicans. They have a supermajority in both houses and are very opposed to any sort of Democratic reform right now. In fact, they tried to proactively close the door on ranked choice voting in the 2024 election.
Oh no! So Missouri is a very red state.
Yes, it is. It hasn't always been that way, but over the last 10 years, it's become very, very red.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's too bad then that the reforms don't have much of a chance of getting through.
Not in the short term, but we'll keep chipping away.
That's a good, optimistic way to see things.
Yeah, you can't. There are all kinds of analogies out there, but you can't expect to just change things overnight. It's going to take continued, sustained effort.
Sounds good. So what type of law have you been practicing?
Most of my law practice has been corporate law, so mergers and acquisitions, and then I've also done some labor and employment law.
Interesting. Labor and employment law on the side of companies?
So the business that I ran was a business that specialized in HR and benefits and risk compliance. So so yes, we kind of played both sides. Frankly, we worked for the companies and the company owners, but worked as their HR department, so representing the employees and making sure employee needs were adequately met, and making sure the owners were compliant with labor laws.
Okay. Interesting. Sounds good. So, Jared, how can our audience support you and the Better Party?
Obviously financial donations are always helpful, but really anybody who's listening who's interested in this and agrees that we need different ways to do our politics, you should find people who are engaged in this effort in your state. So if you're in Missouri, by all means, we would love you as a volunteer, as a donor, spread the word, share on social media. But if you're outside of Missouri, there are people in every state that are engaged in this effort. We just need more bodies. We need more people spending their time and efforts and talent and energies on this. So I would view people jumping in and helping any even if it wasn't the Better Party, any party that's engaged or any group that's engaged in these same efforts is exactly what we need.
Great. That's a good way to look at things. So the party is important, yet it's also part of a bigger cause.
Exactly. But if people want to check out more about us, our website is betterpartymo.org. So betterpartymo.org.
Great. Sounds good. So, Jared, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your past experience as well as your current interests as well as what the Better Party has been doing. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for your time. It's great to be here.
All right. We wish you all the best with your political endeavors and also everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
All right. Likewise.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.